Okay, today I'm going to talk about what's known as privilege, and this is something that for me, prior to transition, I didn't really know what privilege was, and I certainly didn't even believe in it. And so I think privilege is kind of the idea that some people are sort of, due to societal norms or values or culture, are kind of inherently advantaged as in comparison to everyone else. Or I guess you could also look at it as some people are inherently disadvantaged in comparison to everyone else, or probably a mix of the two. Before transition, it was certainly kind of like invisible to me because I I mean, I was essentially. I'm not 100% white. I'm half Asian, but I'm quite. I'm white enough looking. I have a kind of Midwestern, American or North American accent, and I was raised in kind of a middle class setting, and so um, to me, the idea that some people are discriminated against um, didn't really seem legitimate because I always looked at people kind of on the basis of their merits, and I felt that people always looked at me based on only my merits and not really who I was. Um, so I certainly believed that the world was kind of a perfect meritocracy, more or less. Uh, as I got a little bit older and kind of went out in the world and moved to China and was exposed to sort of the different culture and the corruption that happens over there, my views on this started to change a little bit. But I still kind of thought that that was maybe an Eastern culture sort of issue, and that Western culture was still basically free from this sort of nonsense of hierarchies of people and and this kind of thing. I mean, yeah. I guess one example, extreme example, would be sort of like the caste system in India, where you have like the untouchable people that are like the scum of the earth, and they're just born into it, and they're just inherently underprivileged in comparison to the rest of society. Um, that was kind of, I thought that was just kind of a weird cultural thing, and that Western culture didn't really have very much of that going on. However, obviously transitioning changed that a lot for me, and I, I kind of didn't really start experiencing it until until I started, presenting as female and getting really discriminated against, and and it certainly was very shocking and jarring to come to this realization that like privilege is a thing and discrimination is a thing in Western culture, and it's not just somebody says like, haha, look at the tranny, or look at the homo, or whatever like that, and that's the end of it, that it's kind of a systemic sort of issue that a lot of minorities face. And I think to some degree I was, and maybe even still am, guilty of kind of having the mindset that certain types of people are sort of the people that I like to stay away from, in terms of interacting with, making new friends, doing business, this sort of thing. And I think that some of it maybe is valid. I think that, for example, using the example of transgender people, my own demographic, if I could look at, like, even now as a transgender woman, if I had a choice of hiring employees, I would probably consider non-transgender employees sort of less heavily than non-transgender employees. That is to say, I think that there's a higher statistical chance that a transgender employee will be less reliable for whatever reasons in relation to being transgender than a non-transgender employee. And I think that is, in a way, it's legitimate, but in another way, it kind of perpetuates the situation where you kind of don't, you give whatever group, transgender people in this case, less of a chance, you know, and then they kind of they're stuck in this situation. So in a way, it's kind of like the caste system kind of thing. I mean, I'm sure that like in India, for example, where you have these like lower castes of people, and they're just kind of all they're all condemned to like to live like pretty terrible lives in service of the people that are not members of this particular lower caste. Um, it's probably true today that if you were hiring somebody, hiring one of those people, they're probably not going to have, for example, like they're not going to be as informed about the social graces of normal mainstream society, or they might have a lower education on average, or something like this. And I think that's true, but I'm not sure that it necessarily justifies condemning them and their children and everybody in that demographic to this sort of lower station in society indefinitely. Um, you know, maybe there needs to be some kind of balance, and I'm not sure exactly where that balance is, but certainly the status quo kind of benefits the people that are, you know, in the case of transgender people, benefits non-transgender people, and in the case of India, to the extreme, definitely benefits the upper caste people, because if you're a member of an upper caste and you have these like lower caste people to do all the dirty work and the, you know, the bad jobs and stuff like that, why would you want anything to change? You wouldn't. Um, and so there's this kind of need to maintain the social order, or subconscious will to maintain the social order, especially on the part of the people who are sort of the upper caste, or the part of society that is not significantly discriminated against in comparison to others. I think you see that in some ways in the LGBT community. You have a lot of, for example, now you have instances of gay people and lesbian people discriminating against transgender people, and it's kind of like, well, we are also discriminated against, but these people are lower on the totem pole than us, so we can discriminate against them because we don't want to sort of fall or something like this. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but it's very clear to me now that certainly, you know, there are some forces at play within a society that I certainly wasn't aware of before. Now, why I started thinking about this particular topic today was that yesterday, you know, it had kind of been a bit of a long day. I just kind of wanted to relax and to not really, you know, not really think about life and being trans and the stuff that I have to deal with, and you know, just also normal stuff like just work stress and things like that. I just didn't want to think about it, you know, and so I just was sitting beside my boyfriend and watching him play Grand Theft Auto 5, the video game, and it was nice, and you know, we were having fun, just playing around and whatever, and then he's on this mission, and there's just random dialogue in the background, which is like I'm not so sure about, you know, whatever person. He looks like one of those men that look like women, or women that look like men, or something. And it was just a very small thing, kind of, but it just rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, it's clearly discriminatory against transgender people, because like why would you just not be able to stand to watch a certain person just because you're not quite sure if they're male or female, or they might be transgender or whatever? Why does that mean that you're not quite so sure about this? And like, this is kind of the exact kind of like asshole comment that I might overhear sitting on the metro or whatever like that, or going shopping, or sitting at a bar or something like this, having dinner or whatever. And I have to deal with this shit in real life, and it negatively affects my life because I just feel excluded by society. I feel like society doesn't care about me. I'm worthless. Like that's the feeling that I get when I hear this sort of thing. And so, when I'm playing a game or watching my boyfriend play a game and just trying to relax, and I have to just randomly hear a little transphobic soundbite, um, I don't know. I can't really understand why. Like it makes me feel like the makers of this game just the game's not for trans people basically because they're just not at all sensitive to the struggles that we face. And why do people play video games? It's to release stress and just kind of uh, get away from things. And like I'm not saying that I need to see like play the big fluffy bunny rabbit video game where I'm just like going around and nothing bad is happening in the world or whatever. No, of course not. But okay, in this particular instance, like that's not the only transphobic remark that I had seen in Grand Theft Auto, in Grand Theft Auto 5. I mean, I played it a little bit when my boyfriend was away on vacation, and I saw a couple of transphobic things. I think I was going around and like there's this boulevard where there's like transgender prostitutes, and it's called like Adam's Apple Boulevard or something in the game, and I'm like, okay. And then like there's this other thing, I was just going around randomly, and then there was like a hair salon called like Lady and Boy, and I was like, okay, that's kind of weird, but I kind of let it slide. But then like I kept hearing these transphobic remarks or seeing these transphobic things in the game, and I was just like, what the fuck, like seriously, like I get that like they're kind of making fun of all minorities and stuff, but like why are they so disproportionately making fun of trans people? I don't get it. And so yeah, I don't know what to say. I don't know quite what to make of that. But then anyway, I checked online, and I was just looking at like transphobia GTA 5, and I just clicked on like one of the first links that I saw, and it said like it had all these examples of this transphobic shit in Grand Theft Auto 5. Like they have like male and female characters obviously, and then they have like transgender prostitutes. And on the transgender prostitutes, they like add a visible crotch bulge, but they don't add like crotch bulges on male characters. So they're doing this like specifically to make fun of these transgender characters, or like underscore that they're transgender. And and it's like what? And then there's like there's like little puns that they have that are like supposedly a good laugh, like something called like post op because it used to be male, and like MAIL, but like obviously it's a play on words, like making fun of post op transsexuals, I guess, or transsexuals. Like I just don't get it. Like okay, like yeah, like I can see how they're kind of making fun of all minorities to some degree, but like why is there so much on trans people? Like given that we're not really that big a part of the population, why are we getting so much of the attention? Like the negative attention, I mean, like, and so I do feel in a way that it's kind of it is sort of a form of oppression of trans people, and it's just portraying us in a negative light and trying to keep us in this situation where we'll continue to be discriminated against and seen as lower, and in many cases, unfortunately, like the victim of violence even. So yeah, I don't know what to make of that, but that's kind of what I was thinking about today. Lastly, I just kind of wanted to add on that there is this kind of online, especially there's like this kind of social justice warrior thing versus the anti-social justice warrior people, and I think they're called like men's rights activists or something like this, and I think that's an interesting little internet fight. I think that probably both sides, the vocal parts of both sides for the most part, are just kind of making money from the true believers as far as like publicity and things like that they end up getting from making this a big controversy. But I do think that in certain cases, the injustices or the extent of privilege, or discrimination against certain minorities is blown out of proportion. And I think that really can hurt the cause of, um, legitimate fights against discrimination. When you have, I think there's a very there's a few prominent bloggers or vloggers that just go out of their way to kind of make it seem as though video games are like completely anti-women and things like that. And I feel like some of it is legitimate and a lot of it is not so legitimate, a little bit over the top, kind of reaching for straws, or grasping at straws. And I feel that kind of hurts things, and it gets this kind of backlash of these anti-social justice warriors. And I think it also makes them group in sort of some of the very real problems that are being faced by the most discriminated against minorities with sort of these a little bit more or a little bit less serious grievances that probably, while being perhaps legitimate, not quite as on the same severity level as as, for example, the rampant transphobia in Grand Theft Auto. Is there misogyny in Grand Theft Auto? Yes, definitely there is, and it's a problem for sure. But it's probably a little bit of a leap to say that because you can kill women in Grand Theft Auto, that Grand Theft Auto is encouraging you to kill women or encouraging violence against women. It's okay to say, female characters should have more of a role in this video game and be upset about that, but to kind of, start going off the deep end and complaining about every single thing in the game as an extreme act of discrimination, I think that's a little bit too much. Maybe I'm just biased because I happen to be a transgender person myself, and so I'm more sensitive to that discrimination. I'm not sure. Maybe that's just my personal bias. But anyhow, that's everything I have to say about that subject for now. If you have any comments or anything like that about the topic of privilege or the video game Grand Theft Auto 5 and the transphobia within it, definitely let me know. Okay, take care, bye.